Now, the first topic we're going to talk about is a trade that just happened in the NBA. Pascal Siakam got traded to the Indiana Pacers.
Crazy.
Now, Riv, what do you think about this trade?
What's that?
Start working.
Yeah, get back to work.
That was funny as shit. Well, to start off, win-win on both sides, I feel like. I
Really?
yeah, I do. I don't think for Indiana this is a long-term win because I do think, they don't know if Siakam's going to re-sign in Indiana. Mm-hmm. Indiana's never really known to attain free agents like that. But I understand, Hallie's down with an injury right now. You want to win. You want to win fast. Now, this could be a situation where they end up like the Cleveland deal with Donovan might leave. They trying to win too fast when they got a star. Or this could work out, but for right now, they want to win in this playoffs. They feel like, Milwaukee's vulnerable. And there is the Celtics in their own race, but outside of that, Milwaukee's vulnerable. The Knicks, they feel like they have a chance to beat Miami and so forth and so forth. So they want to bring in Siakam to an offense that's one of the best in the league, and they didn't have to give up none of their young players. They didn't have to give up Mathurin, Walker, who doesn't even play for them right now. Obi is still in the team. So they were able to keep this young core, which is really good. They were able to get off Bruce Brown, who honestly, they were probably going to let him walk this offseason anyways. You bring in Siakam, so even if he does leave, you still leave yourself with enough cap to go do something else. So for the most part, that's good for them. And in Toronto, they got 3 first-round picks out of Siakam, They managed to get Bruce Brown, who they can let walk and get some cap filler. They didn't really bring in any young talent, but I believe it was a two first-round picks in 2024 and a 2026 pick or something like that. Mm-hmm. So they're going to get 2 picks this year, possibly 3, and then they're going to have another pick. They do have their other pick as top 5 protected with the Spurs, I believe. So they're going to be able to have a lot of capital for, unfortunately, not the greatest draft in terms of stars, but a lot of role players in this draft. And maybe you pop off and you grab one because we said that about other drafts before, but they're going to be able to bring in young talent to kind of rival or, come behind Scotty and then IQ and now RJ, who's a part of their plan. So for me, it was a win-win on both sides.
This could be a hot take, but I think I would prefer the package that the Raptors got for OG than Siakam. And if Siakam signs long-term with the Pacers, I think that this is a fleecing. I say that with the idea that who is Indiana going to get in the open market realistically?
Nobody.
No one. No. So they had to be aggressive to make a move like this. They traded 3 first-round picks. They traded a Bruce Brown. Solid role player, one of the better role players. That's fine. But the 3 first rounds that they traded, 2 this year, 1 that was their own, and then the worst of Houston, Utah, the Clippers, and OKC. So realistically, it's going to be between OKC and the Clippers. So they're going to be giving picks, let's say from range 23 to potentially 30 if you think one of those 2 teams can win the whole thing. And then their first round in 2026 for Pascal Siakam, who now gets a chance to see what it's like in Indiana, see if he wants to sign long-term with the Indiana Pacers to play alongside a Tyrese Halliburton. You see the Indiana Pacers are playing some great basketball right now. Historically, are the best offense we've ever seen in terms of offensive rating. We know that'll come back down to earth, but regardless, they still play with the highest pace in the NBA. And then you add on top of it Pascal Siakam, who plays with some of the most pace in the NBA on the Toronto Raptors himself. This is a perfect fit for the Indiana Pacers, getting a Pascal Siakam, getting a player before he were to hit the open market, because, again, like I already said, there's not many people that are going to be intrigued to go and sign with Indiana in the offseason that's of the caliber of a Pascal Siakam. Also, by saying it's a win-win for the Toronto Raptors, we're now virtually saying they're going to hit on these 2 late-round, first-round picks in 2024. They're going to hit. That's how it has to be because you traded Pascal.
Because you got to think, you don't have to hit at the right moment. It could be a win now. It could be a win-win for you at the moment because now you have the flexibility. You have the draft capital. They don't have a shit ton of young talent, so they got to bring in young talent. And for Indiana, you're hoping Siakam stays. Because like you mentioned, they're not going to get guys in free agency. You're going to have to kind of sway them through the year, when you have them. So they're going to do the best they can this year to, basically try to sway him to stay in Indiana. Of course, if they go further in the playoffs, that's going to help his case. But at the end of the day, for Toronto, there wasn't many deals out there that were giving up 3 first-round picks. We can hear all the smoke screen but Siakam was making it very clear that he wasn't going to want to re-sign with a team when he got traded, so it was making it hard for them.
There were 2 things working against the Raptors in this trade. One of them is that Pascal Siakam is on an expiring deal. The second is that he was not going to make any commitment to whatever team that traded for him. So those two things were working against the Raptors in the negotiations. I don't think the market for Pascal was that hot. I don't think OKC wanted to trade for him. I think they're going to let their young core do what they do. They already complement each other so well.
I agree.
I think it'd be short-sighted. So then it really just leaves Dallas. And I don't think Dallas was going to offer 3 first-round picks. And I also don't think Dallas has intriguing young players that you really want, because Jaden Hardy is solid, but he has times where he's in a game. Really, it just depends on if Luka or Kyrie is hurt. That's when he really plays a lot of minutes. And even then, he's been very hit or miss. But they already have Emmanuel quickly, so there's probably no point in getting Jaden Hardy. And then you have someone like Josh Green, who he's solid, but he's going to be a free agent, so you're going to have to pay him as well.
They paid him.
That's why. Oh, you're right. They did pay him. But I don't even know if Josh Green will fit on this current Raptors team. I think getting Bruce Brown was fine. And it's funny how in the offseason we said that this was an overpay for Bruce Brown. But when you're a small market, you have to overpay for players. And this is what got the deal done, that contract that they signed him on. And that was probably the plan all along. The Raptors can now trade Bruce Brown. I think he's a good enough role player to fetch 2 first-round picks. For a contender that's desperate to add 1 final rotational player, at the minimum, you're getting a first-round pick for Bruce Brown.
I agree.
So they're going to get 4 first-round picks total from trading Pascal Siakam. I think the Raptors did what they needed to do. They needed to move off Pascal Siakam, now give the full reins to Scotty Barnes and see what he can be. I think Pascal re-signs with the Indiana Pacers. I think he's going to fit perfectly with their offense. He's going to have the most spacing he's ever had in his career. He's going to drive to the basket. He's going to play make for them at a high level. I think he's going to be a bought-in defender, and that's going to help their team defense out. And when you play him off ball, if you play him in a corner, that's where he's most effective. And he's shooting above 40% from 3 from there. So they get a knockdown corner 3-point shooter. I feel like I'm looking in the mirror when I look at the Sacramento Kings and the Indiana Pacers, because when the Kings traded Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, everybody thought, well, Domantas Sabonis is not moving the needle for this team. This was a bad trade for them. But they were able to get the 3rd seed in the Western Conference the very next year by trading for Sabonis. The Pacers made a trade of their own, getting an all-star power forward and Pascal Siakam, who they will re-sign. And a lot of people are kind of underrating how much better this makes the Pacers. When Tyrese is out there, it's going to make them a borderline. They're already borderline unstoppable. It's going to make them that much better.
Agreed.
Their defense improves, but now Halliburton, who's had some history with injury, when he's not out there, you have a legit all-star who can keep you in games and at least not tank your season, because he can hold the fort while someone like Halliburton is dealing with an injury and coming back. I think they made this move because they don't want their season to go in the gutter. You know, a bad 3-week stretch can put this team out of the top 6 contention. Yep. And I think they made this move so they could stay in the race. And that's why I think it was a smart deal.
Love this move. Love this move for the Pacers. Just one point on your Kings Sabonis trade. I think the biggest difference there is just who you're giving up.
Of course.
People giving up Bruce Brown and picks, we're like, okay, this is a big move, giving up Tyrese Halliburton at such a young age. That's people kind of looking at sideways. But I love this for Indy. We'll see what those picks end up becoming, because as you guys mentioned, they're going to be late first rounders. And from what everyone is saying is this draft class isn't filled with, top echelon guys that are going to be superstars, especially not in the 20s, wherever these picks will be. But for the Pacers, they really needed Siakam. They needed someone to come in, number one, who has some size, right? They have a lot of guys that aren't as physical, I think, as needed, especially in a playoff setting. When you think about some of the other teams you're going to go up against, possibly the Knicks, the Cavaliers, like those are some guys that have playoff experience and are, bigger teams that have some physicality to them, especially when Mitchell Robinson is back with the New York Knicks. And I think the fit, it works, right? I think the biggest issue or complaint people have with Siakam is his 3-point shooting.
Yep.
But the fact that you have Miles Turner there, you have enough shooters around him. And as Joel mentioned, when in the corner, he's shooting 47% from 3 this season. So if in certain spots he's able to knock down the shot, everywhere else it's like 30, 31%. So there's specific areas, of course, where he's going to be hotter than others. But as long as you put him in position to succeed, I think that's going to be great. And they need another ball handler too and creator outside of Tyrese, because you have guys that can do it, that can create for themselves and create for others, but Pascal's just doing that at an upper echelon level than those guys. And then you just have more looks in the playoffs more options to throw at defenders. Like, he's one of the more efficient post players this season as well. So that's another option that we don't see as much from this Indiana team.
True.
And the half court too is like one of the bigger areas of concern, especially in the playoff setting for a lot of teams. And the Pacers this year have been so up and down, so fast paced. Number one offense, like Drew mentioned. When the time comes that they have to slow it down offensively, especially late in the fourth quarters, having someone like Siakam to run pick and roll with Tyrese or just create by himself, or just being someone that's 6'8", 6'9", 245, there's not a lot of dudes in the NBA that's at that size and could keep up with Siakam's skill set. So it's not the last move the Pacers have to make to become a championship team, right? This isn't the move that they go from a first round exit type team to an NBA Finals appearance. But this is a move in the right direction. Like, I'm looking at this team. I put a poll out earlier. Who would you take between the Pacers and Knicks? And it was like 60-40 Pacers. And before this trade, I don't think it would have been that. Probably would have been 80-20 Knicks before they make this move for Siakam.
True.
So I do think getting him puts you in contention to at least winning a playoff series. And where you
I
look
still
at
voted Knicks there,
where you look at this
personally.
team was last
think the Knicks are
season
better.
compared to where they are now, or last season they weren't even or close to this position to make the playoffs. Now they have a real chance to make the second round of the Eastern Conference or of the playoffs. And from there, like Riv mentioned, there's vulnerable teams in the East. What's Philly going to look like in the playoffs? Will Joel Embiid's shooting be just as efficient as it's been in the regular season? Because we've seen it drop off in the playoffs. And then for the Bucks, defensively, the issues have been a problem all season long. So if you could take advantage of that, they've gone back and forth this season, the regular season. But overall, I love this move for the Pacers. I think it definitely makes the team better. And I'm happy the Raptors made a decision. The OG was the first step to go towards this rebuild. Now you trade off Siakam. It's clear from top down. You hire a new coach. Now you have basically all draft picks, a clean slate more or less with some young players there. So it's a rebuild, and Mujiri was under like a little microscope with what he was going to do with this team. The fact that he got all of these picks plus an extra first probably for Bruce Brown, I think he did a pretty good job at.
I think it's interesting because, Drew, you mentioned that, Dehls, you mentioned they have to hit on these picks, but if you look at Indiana and you look at Toronto, right? Like Joel mentioned, it was a great point. They're not going to get guys in free agency. Like, they'll get role players. They'll get good players. But in terms of that star guy, that star player, rarely does it happen where they get guys, or if even ever, where they get guys in free agency. So, they got 2 picks in this. And of course, this trade helps them lose. Like, this trade helps them become closer
Raptors
to getting their top 5 pick for the Raptors because, like I mentioned, it's protected. It's with San Antonio. You kind of have to land in that area to get that pick back. But also, these are picks that you can trade, to get up, to move up in the draft, or the 2026 pick you can use in the trade to get a star at that time if they need one. So it wasn't necessarily about getting a young player because, like you mentioned, Dallas doesn't have too many. Like, you don't want to Omax too much, and then Golden State wasn't willing to give up Kuminga, so you couldn't get him. The Kings, they weren't giving up Keegan Murray. Like, a lot of teams wasn't trying to give up their young player for an expiring guy. So, like, with Indiana, they needed to do it. It was pretty simple. They had to get something, and 3 first-round picks is cool in this time where you're going to need them.
What do you think? Did the Raptors get a better deal for OG than Siakam? I feel yes.
It's depending on how you feel about RJ.
Well, you got RJ and Quickly, who Quickly really is the intriguing
If you
piece.
feel RJ, if you feel Quickly is worth 3 first-round picks.
I'm not saying he's worth 3 first-round
But
picks.
here's
I'm
the
just saying he's something that actually intrigues me as opposed to picks 23 through 30.
I like
You can find
I
a
like
Quickly-
RJ and IQ more.
You can find
'Cause
a
you
Quickly in
just know.
23 to 30.
Can you?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to hit.
You got to hit.
The chances of getting Quickly at 23 to 30 are slim.
The
With all due respect.
That's where they got him.
That's
though.
what they got. Him,
I know,
Max,
but
him,
let's-
Maxey, and those players. They
if we
tend
go
to,
through every
Knicks
draft
late
20
round
to
draft
30,
picks,
how many
though,
IQs
solid.
compared to how many busts?
They have been.
You could
Tyrese
find.
Maxey was a late round.
Let me
draft
know.
pick.
Okay, let
That's
me.
76ers.
But
We're not talking about the
realistically,
Raptors.
this is like picks 20 through 40.
But let
that
me
you're gonna
not
have to
say
figure out
quickly
who's
because
that
that's
dude.
maybe why you can get a player.
You can get a role player.
You can get a player like that, a small
Yes.
scoring guard that
I
is
know what
quick.
you mean.
Yeah, like
Six man of the year caliber.
Yeah, you can get a
Yes.
player like that in 20 to 30. Maybe
Jordan
not
Clarkson
IQ, but you
was
can get that.
Jordan
You
Clarkson
know,
was the second rounder. You
I
look
know,
at
but
Malcolm
you
Brogdon,
have
second
to
rounder.
look at
Maybe because I
you're
said
looking
quickly
at, you're
just-
talking about the hits, but there are infinitely
many
more
misses.
misses
of
than there are
course,
hits.
of course. But you trust Toronto to hit on those late picks.
Are you going to look at last year's draft pick?
I'm gonna look at NBA draft
No, 'cause
history.
what is
I
Toronto
mean,
known
there's more
for?
bust than hits.
Yeah, but what
It's
is
just-
Toronto known for? developing late first round picks, late second round picks. So that, if anything, that's their calling card. We know we can pick 20 because Grady Dick stinks right now. Yeah. But we know 20 to 30 late second. Toronto will hit on this.
At the time, Scotty over Jalen Suggs was questionable, but that ended up being a good draft pick. Grady Dick over Jordan Hawkins. We'll see how that one ages. But I don't know if I love the late round draft picks because the idea is also in 2026 that the Indiana Pacers, they're going to be a team that's contending for something higher than, of course, a pick in the teens.
That's what you're hoping for.
I went all the way back to 2015, and let's just see if we can find that type of archetype player.
Okay.
In 2015, DeLon Wright was the 20th pick in the draft.
He's a good role player.
Tyus Jones was the 24th pick in the draft.
Tyus is solid.
And those are the two guards. I'm just going to name the archetypes of those players.
Tyus Jones, I like.
They're both solid.
Yeah.
In 2016, these were misses. Oh, DeJounte Murray, 29.
That's an all-star. We're here.
Pascal Siakam, 27.
Pascal
He's not the same type of player.
No, but
Karis LeVert was 20th in this draft.
That's a spark.
Yes, kind of six-man spark. But, yes. So that was 2016. Let's go to
5 for 6 at this moment.
Yeah, let's go to 2017.
Yeah, but we're talking about 2 hits over 10 picks in these drafts. So
I know, but we're just saying we're just saying that you can
guards.
find the type of archetype in the 20s though.
But maybe IQ can be much better than this. That's the
archetype verse.
That's what I meant to say. That's why IQ. I probably said
we're
IQ,
just saying that in the 20s, a player of that archetype will most likely than not be available. And with the history of the draft, it's showing that
I like
they are
the
available.
Raptors did both though. They got the young players with the OG trade, and then they got more picks with the Siakam trade. So typically, it's hard to do both unless you have like a superstar KD type. You get McHale, Cam, and picks. So they did both just with 2 separate trades.
So in 2017, Derek White was a 29th pick in the draft.
So far, two of these great players that you've named have been drafted by the Spurs.
Yes.
And
also the 20th pick, the 23rd pick was OG Anunoby from the Raptors.
The Raptors cook.
So they have, Masai Ujiri, he's drafted Pascal and OG in the late round of the first. So, he knows how to draft. 2018, looking at 22-30, see if we can find an archetype. Grayson Allen, 21st pick.
He's a cool role player.
Anthony Simons, 24th pick.
Shit. Shout out to Portland.
And Landry Shamet, 26th pick, who at a while he was like decent, right?
Yeah,
so that's why I mentioned
him.
You
could have left that one. You could have skipped that one.
That's why I mentioned him. The 2019 NBA draft.
Okay. Also, I'm just looking at Raptors draft picks. 2020, they had the 29th pick, Malachi Flynn.
It's been a lot of Raptors and Spurs cooking in these drafts.
It has been. Golden State 2019, Jordan Poole. And Keldon Johnson was the pick after, and Kevin Porter Jr. was pick number 30.
Jordan Poole, are we giving that?
What do you mean? He contributed to an NBA championship.
What is he?
That's more than Amanda quickly can say.
He's better now, though.
Holy moly.